Hi, so I was I made a promise in a discussion that I posted to, I think, a Nick at Night post on YouTube maybe it wasn't Nick at Night. No, I think it was Yarn. It was Yarn's channel, Orange Juice. It's absolutely the Orange Juice channel is absolutely fantastic. The guy actually makes some headway into the Clash Royale as if the game is a competitive sport, as if it's like chess. He analyzes and talks through things and shows very specific examples, much more so than I think I've seen anywhere else. And he was investigating it. He's actually done 2 or 3 videos investigating how to use the new ice giant. And I made a switch and a couple of videos about it to whenever I got my first miner to using the miner. And then shortly after that, I got the log and I had a question about how to switch over to that. And within a day or two, I came up with this deck. And at the time, my switch over to the miner took me from about 2100 to close to 2300, basically 2300. And I've gone up another 250 points from there, it actually took me a while to figure out the difference in play style and everything. I ended up going back to Three Musketeers for Punch for me because I just like the card. Anyway, I find that my deck is very responsive, a very strong contender for a control deck with still some heavy punch. And I think it's a little unique in that I actually use the giant as the big muscle, like you're used to if you're looking at the Poison deck or Poisson or a typical Golem based deck or a Lava Hound deck. The whole idea is you put something heavy in front and then you come through and you do damage and you take something out, right? The 2 Elixir Giant is what does that for me. And I think that of the 3 variants that I saw in today's video at Orange Juice Gaming, if I'm remembering it correctly, I believe that that's where it was. One of them was a control deck, and it was extremely low cost, and actually looks really interesting to me. I think I'm going to go back and try it. Another one was a Three Musketeers and I think P.E.K.K.A. deck, and that also kind of looked interesting to me. But then whenever he played it, I liked mine more, and so I wanted to do a video about what it is that I'm doing. So I'm going to show some. Just like the last time, I'm going to show some shots with my deck and what it's about. I'm going to show it versus different types of decks. So the first one we're going to take a look at, these may not be the best examples in the world, but they're all from relatively recent play. The first one we're going to look at is right here with Peppa. He's got a Sparky, and a Sparky deck is a really common thing you're going to run into. You'll also notice if you look at the levels on that bottom row there, he's got those 10s and those 7s, a level 2 unique. He is universally higher leveled than me. I don't know how I beat him. He's got a completely higher level deck than every card he's got practically is higher level than mine. But let's go ahead and watch that. Okay, so this is one of the great starts that you get with this deck because you've got the Ice Giant and coming up, or in your initial set, you also have the Three Musketeers. One of the things I really like to do is play that out. Drop the giant and then drop them in the middle and the front. Drop the musketeers so that they split behind the giant. And that provides a variety of multiple multi-stage threats. Like you can't just quickly and cheaply respond to either side. You have to respond to both sides pretty strongly, or else you lose some health in your tower like he did there. He had such a large giant there, it surprised me, and I said, wow. And then whenever he followed it up with that big minion horde, I had to zap. There was, he actually stood a good chance of doing a lot of damage to me, even though I started out with my favorite opening. Now, a lot of people would save the miner so that you could get a surprise attack with it, but in my case, I wanted to spend mana and try to force him to go first. I'm still waiting here because I don't know what the heck to do. And now I see why he's waiting so much. This was the thing he's doing. He's dropping, and he's got it. I'm going, wow, because it's a freaking level 2 Sparky. So he's got a level 2 Sparky, a level 7 Giant. And I'm like, oh boy, let's, you know. And now, unfortunately, my witch is too far forward. I probably played that reactively, not realizing what I was up against. I take down the Giant easily enough, but that's not really my concern here. I mean, that Sparky doesn't have to get out of control for very long to do a lot of damage. But luckily, I can't believe how important the Tombstone is in this deck. You would think that you'd want a cannon or what is the tower thing that's just like the dragon? I used to use it all the time. Inferno Tower. You'd think you'd want an Inferno Tower. You don't. I mean, for this deck at least, it is so versatile to have something that can actually kick back with skeletons. Now here I'm going to lose those on the left side because the Sparky's out, but they'll do good damage on the Giant. You see how the Giant peels for me? Isn't it a beautiful thing? And in fact, it even slows the Sparky, so I pretty much kill the Sparky without spending any additional mana. I am so confident that I drop that on the other side to shut down any alternate split push if he's going to run a split push, and just push hard on the left because he's got that side's a lot more damage. Right, so you can see how no matter what he does, he can't get through with over-leveled cards even, and a deck that's optimized to overwhelm the opponent. And that's the beautiful thing about this deck. This is such a strong control deck. Now he's pushing on the left side. I've got him going the wrong way, and I've switched over to the right. Kind of baited him on that. And yeah, it was a good game. I am really happy with how well my deck is doing. I'm wondering actually where I'm going to end up. I think I might end up leveling off before I upgrade a card at around 2600. It's continuing to increase. Anyway, it works against those kind of Sparky decks. And so next we're going to look at a Lava Hound, and you can see he's got the level 2 of the Inferno Dragon. And this is a typical thing for me. I tend to show successes instead of failures. One of the things though about this deck is, you can see I got the opening that I prefer. One of the things about this deck though is that I have not yet really leveled off at a maximum. I'm continuing to increase. Just today I got to a new high level, and yesterday whenever I stopped playing I also got to a new high level. So I'm not in a good position yet to really show the thing fail based on something other than my own mechanical failures, you know. Kind of a lucky thing. Now, I do have some pretty highly leveled gear here myself. The Witch is a level 4 Witch that is definitely at the higher end for a level 9 player, but it's within the realm of normalcy. I haven't seen what he's got, but I see that dragon, so I got a feel for what's coming up. The thing is, because everything is so cheap in this deck, I kind of have to splash it around. I don't have, you know, a particular slow build that I have to build up to. With the exception, actually, you do run into that trying to get the 3 Musketeers down. The cost on 3 Musketeers is just so big that there are times where you get caught in an efficiency issue with the Musketeers, even with a low-cost deck. If this deck's average cost is 3.6 elixir, and if you got rid of the Musketeers with like a 5 elixir card or something, it'd be like a 3 elixir deck. It would be ridiculously fast. So you can see how my ability to chip here is vastly superior to the other side. And he's scared to come in because he doesn't have anything to do enough damage to be a significant threat. Always tanking on my end with the Icy Giant if I can. Now I realize I have to pull back because I'm going to have another push I have to defend on with the Lava Hound. but I happened to absolutely take the right hand side, which was actually just supposed to be some pressure to keep him from pushing on the left. Since he went for it, I have to try my best to take this down, but you can see that is a lot of damage. He's got too good of a push set up. However, with 100 mana over there, I'm not really concerned at all. Or 100 health on that tower. So I just provide him with things to attack and pop it. And that really was a good game, man. That was a challenging game for me. I enjoyed playing that. And so another one that you can you'll find pretty commonly is something with a royal giant and some sort of a quick ping attack like a hog rider or a princess, and here we got both of them. Now princesses are actually kind of a bit of a problem for me because I do have a lot of cheap troops. I also don't have an ideal opening here, so what I tend to do is I tend to trickle out and build an opening, just like you can imagine that you had the giant and you're going to push on one side with a giant or something. That's what you do. You set up a slow trickle. Now I'm late casting that, but I should have been even later because that damn princess is there shredding my attack. However, because he's wasting time trying to decide how to get a better attack than the one that he tried to set up earlier. So I got some decent damage on that tower. And this is something that you can do, a great thing you can do with the ice giant. On this particular side, it's on the side that I was attacking on, so it's not really worth as much, but the general idea of pushing with you drop the ice giant on an offside or whenever you're not really expecting. It works best anyway whenever you drop it on an offside or someplace where you're not expecting a defensive response from the opponent, because you can actually ignore an ice giant if it's going at your tower. It'll die before it does 100 damage to your tower or something. But you wait till it gets up towards the bridge or something like that to try and bite into a commitment on the other side and drop down something really cheap, skeletons, guards, and those little guys will do a lot of damage because that ice giant will hang out long enough for them to really tear into that tower. He has not yet damaged. Okay, he just got a shot off on my tower. I was going to say. However, he's had enough control that it's actually been hard for me to do the kind of damage that you would expect given the state of my towers. And he hasn't been able to play that at all because he's not able to get a push to overwhelm something and then, be able to drive a cost advantage and elixir advantage so that he can drop that thing down and not worry about the fact that I'm going to have to chip at it with small mana attacks. That's one of the most annoying things to me, that people are able to do that. I wish the miner was more selective, but I don't know. You'll notice how he had 3 major pieces on my tower there. He almost had a successful counter attack, but everything on my end is so cheap that I was able to overwhelm it. And in the end, I won. So thank you for the game, King Yasser. Okay, so now let's look at a couple more games. This first one is going to be a more typical giant beatdown deck. It's not going to have a poison. He's got the full level 7 fireball though, which means he can wipe out my 3 musketeers in one shot. Because it's the full stage. My musketeers are 1 level from the highest that you'd usually see at level 9. And he's at level 7, so that thing is actually one massively over leveled fireball he's got. That's something I learned from whenever I originally had my 3 musketeers deck. Like without the icy giant, you can open with it really well because it forces a response, a significant response, usually on both sides, or at least one of the 2 sides. And so it gives you a easy way, showing only 1 card yourself, to get 1, 2, 3 major cards, an understanding of the cards that your opponent is using. And he's not going to be able to hold back and just, drop waste cycle cards for. Although if you look at something like a Valkyrie as a cycle, which against non-3 Musketeers decks it is, maybe, then it's not quite as effective. But in that particular case, it's worthwhile. So you can see how easily I just melt a level 7 giant at level 9 myself. Just because of the amount of mana and fluency, and you can see how beautiful that ice giant explosion is. It slows everything down, and she was able to do a lot more damage. And I'm not even worried here because I've got, look at that. It's just beautiful. That was 5 mana was my response. Actually, it was 7 mana because of the log. But it was against 9 mana, so it was a 2 mana purchase. So now all I have to do is hold on, and I have a control deck. Occasionally I slip up, and this is where when I make my mistakes, so far that seems to be the thing that I mess up on. When all I have to do is hold on, or even before I've actually won the other tower, but still that's all I have to do. I've gotten advantage in points, and if they're able to just tip it over, then they can break that tipping point and do some serious damage. And that is the type of mistake that I make. So that was actually a 3-crown win against New. Good game, man. And here we've got somebody who's got a large amount of, like me, he's got 2 uniques. He's got a level 2 unique. And he's got a fairly typical control a Golem hybrid deck, which is one of the things that you tend to see if you're going to see a Golem in play. Because the control aspect of your deck forces people into a stalemate position where they just can't overwhelm, right? They can't deal with anything. So the one card that you're going to push through with is going to be something like a 3 Musketeers in my case, or a Golem in his case. Just because it's so much larger than everything else that's in play, given the amount of mana that's available because of how swift the control decks are, that it overwhelms. Now that was actually a bad push on my part. I put that out the wrong way. If I got the order reversed and got the tower on the giant, that would have been a much more damaging push. Or actually, it would have, assuming also that he didn't have a fireball, but he had the fireball. You can see we're both waiting for our trump card, and now we both got it selected. It's because we're playing the same kind of deck with different cards, honestly. In my case, my response is my attack is much faster. And I'm not sure that I agree with his idea there, because the golem is a slow, overwhelming thing that you do like this instead. This is right, but the other one was, if he had waited, saved it up, and then dropped it at the front, or closer to the front of it, without the princess. Because there's nothing to defend with the princess. You drop the princess behind the troops, and then it makes sense. Anyway, I got a bit lucky, and you can see he's actually going to do some serious damage here before I'm able to finally shut it down. Because that is the advantage of the golem, and it just wasn't enough. So I've got 1,000 damage on his one tower, and he's got almost 2,000 damage on my one tower, but I have a tower lead, which means I don't have to do much. And now that he's done that, I can drop this on the Three Musketeers on this side and split his push, and in fact even cap the tower, and it's basically all over. All I have to do is defend the right side, which I'm not doing actually. It may not be all over if I continue to play like this, but oh wow, I'm actually going to succeed on it. I didn't remember this replay very well. That was a very, very impressive defense on my part. I was really tickled with myself there, I bet. Wow. So that shows it off spectacularly against a similar type of deck. This deck has all sorts of control. Okay, so is there anything else in here that's interesting? By the way, I don't have anything like a 10-win streak or anything, but I do have quite a lot of wins. That time might be interesting. I can't really make it out except for a hog beatdown deck. And you got a Pika beatdown. And a hog beatdown deck. I seem to have hog beatdowns. Let's go for a tie rather than a win, because that might be more instructive for as long as I didn't do something stupid to get there. Right, now you see how I tended to switch over to that tombstone right away? That's never a good idea. Save your tombstone, it's a reactive card. Control decks are all about playing reactively. This was an interesting move on my part, especially given that I knew he was going to do that. But it's worth it, because now everything's clear, and I can start with those. And I'm actually thrilled to see that he dropped the Musketeer, because I can ensure that I have 2 Musketeers where his one is, but then that comes in and I go, oh, well that's something I learned today. Yeah. He did really good on his defense, and really shut me down. So he's got a lot of control in the hog beatdown deck, which I guess is maybe typical of at least the older style, because there used to be questions about whether or not it even was a beatdown deck or a control deck for people who thought about that. Okay, so what I should do here, unfortunately, yeah, I just have a bad cycle actually. I don't have a front man. I could put down the Ice Giant maybe, but the Ice Giant would have been appropriate if that was available. Now the Ice Giant is appropriate, although, yeah, I would rather do that. The Ice Giant plus the 3 Musketeers would be appropriate. If I want to set up a push, but I just can't get in cycle. So now I'm going to try and split the cycle in a different way. and double down on that split. And it doesn't look like, no matter what, I can get in with enough damage for it to be meaningful. And he's always got so much damage there and so much splash damage against my horde style of push that he is doing a great job of making my attacks meaningless. On top of that, I can't bait him on the wrong side now because the health of the towers is too disparate. No, this is really bad. Yeah. I was running out of ideas there, actually. I'm sure there's a better move. I gotta look at that and find out what the better move is at that moment, because that is a good place where I could have improved my strategy, maybe. So I have some advantage, but the game would have to probably run on for another 3, 4, 5 minutes before I'd actually get a win. That was a great game. Thank you, David.